Hello, everyone. It's Thor, and today we're going to be talking about Prince Harry and the announcement of his new book release. The book is entitled Spare, and it's set to be released on January 10th, 2023. So, what I'm going to look at today is what type of fallout are we to expect from this book release? Because I really do feel that this is going to be a catalytic event, not just for Prince Harry and his relationship with the royal family and his father, King Charles, but I feel like this is going to be a catalytic event for Prince Harry's marriage with Meghan as well. And I'm going to show you through the chart how this is all influencing these different types of things. For those of you that are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. Let me take you to the slide here. I do Vedic sidereal astrology, if you guys are new to this, not Western tropical astrology. So, for example, Prince Harry in Vedic astrology is a Sagittarius. If you're interested in a private reading, please check the details down below. And also, I want to give a disclaimer before we move forward that any statements that I make are just assumptions based on my interpretation of the astrological chart of Prince Harry's. So let's take a look at Prince Harry's chart. I'm sure you're all wanting to take a look at that. What I wanted to do was, for those of you that are new to Prince Harry's chart, I'm going to point out a few things about the type of individual that Prince Harry is. And I feel like he's a very stand-up guy. So I do feel like he's very noble. If we look Sagittarius here, ascendant, and we got Jupiter in the first house, and Jupiter is the planet, the god. It's basically the teacher of the devas, teacher of the gods. So, having Jupiter in the first house is going to show somebody that has a very dharmic type of life. They know right from wrong. They have a moral compass. So this person, Prince Harry, is a very moral type of person. And then if we take a look at Sun in the ninth house of Leo, and Sun is in its own house, Leo. So this is a very powerful placement. Again, this shows a very dharmic, principled type personality. I do feel like that Prince Harry does have a compassionate type of heart for humanity in general, and I know that he's done quite a bit of service work and things like that, especially with Rahu in the sixth house. Rahu in the sixth house can create some problems, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But also, Rahu in the sixth house can create somebody that has a life of service. So, for example, Mother Teresa had Rahu in the sixth house. So let's clean up the chart a little bit. What I also want to point out is I'm going to point out a few factors about Prince Harry and Meghan's relationship according to the astrology chart, so we can get a little bit of a pretext for this book release that's about to happen. And when we're looking at an astrology chart, the seventh house is traditionally what we look at when we're looking at marriage. And since this is Prince Harry's first marriage, it would be the seventh house here. And you'll notice there's no planets in it, but there is a crucial aspect. Besides Jupiter aspecting the seventh house, there's this Mars aspect that's happening on the seventh house. Mars has an aspect on houses, 4 houses from itself, 7 houses from itself, and 8 houses from itself. So 8 houses, we get the 7th house. And this is known as Kuja dosha. And Kuja dosha is known as kind of bad luck in a lot of marriages, especially if both spouses don't have Kuja dosha. It can be somewhat detrimental. What Kuja dosha does is there's a lot of Mars energy that gets injected into the marriage house. And so it creates a lot of restlessness in the marriage. And it can even create things like bickering, arguing. And basically the spouses are so restless that they can't get along. Traditionally, it's seen as kind of bad luck. There are ways to overcome it. About 1/3 of all charts have Kuja dosha. So if you have it in your chart, it's not something to panic about. But it can show that you're going to have to take special precautions. For example, having more space in your house and an outlet for that Mars energy and so forth. But this Mars aspect is definitely going to create, some friction in the relationship. And this restless energy, if you think about it, could have been one of the contributing factors to the whole Megxit situation when Prince Harry and Meghan decided to leave. The other thing I want to point out is if we take a look at Venus in the chart, this can represent somebody's spouse in the chart because Venus is the Karaka of marriage. And if we count 6 houses from the moon, 6 from moon is an important angle to look at in everyone's chart because it really shows emotional enemies or people that cause us harm. And sometimes people cause us harm. Sometimes it's on purpose and sometimes it's inadvertently they cause us harm. Well, in Prince Harry's chart, Venus being 6 from moon could show the spouse could be causing the native, which is Prince Harry, some sort of harm, and especially harm on an emotional level. So we don't really know, we don't see what their relationship is behind closed doors, but this is definitely showing there's a lot of potential hurt there and potential issues, especially being 6 from moon. That's important to look at any of your charts. So always important to take a look at. The other thing I want to point out, which is quite interesting about Harry and Meghan's relationship, is we look at the Navamsa chart when we do Vedic astrology. And this is important for looking at marriages. It's a supplemental chart that's used. And one of the things we look at when we're looking at a first marriage is we look at the first house of the Navamsa and we look at the 7th house of the Navamsa. So we see that this is a very karmic type of marriage. We got Ketu in the first house of Virgo, and then you got Rahu in the 7th house of Pisces, and we also got Saturn and Rahu there. Well, I was thinking about this for quite a while before I did this video, and I don't believe I spoke about this in the previous video that we have on Prince Harry, but one of the things to point out is, when Ketu's in the first house of the Navamsa, this is somebody it's almost like they're not in control of the marriage. It's somebody who's very impressionable. They're just kind of being led in a direction by the spouse who's represented by Rahu over here. And the person that has Ketu in the first house is kind of just like they don't have a lot of psychic boundaries, and they can be very impressionable. So it's easy to take advantage of somebody that has Ketu in the first house. Now, Rahu and Saturn together, I found this very interesting. Sometimes when we look at things like witchcraft or we look at black magic or the occult, a lot of times we get these Rahu-Saturn combinations, which is quite interesting. Now, I'm not saying there's any type of black magic or occult or situation going on in the marriage, but in my mind, this could show the spouse being very mesmerizing. Somebody where, everybody around Prince Harry was like, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And he was absolutely mesmerized by this person. So it could seem like being bewitched in a certain way. Okay. So that's very interesting to point out with Saturn and Rahu being there, since it is a combination that indicates, it's basically Rahu is considered a demon, and then Saturn there just kind of amplifies it. And then noticing that Saturn is the 6th lord as well. So this is quite interesting to see that combination there. So I do feel that, out of the relationship, I do feel that Meghan is the one pretty much leading the relationship. And I know that probably doesn't surprise many of you watching this video. So let's go take a look at the book release. So the book release is going to be happening on January 10th. So we're going to want to look at the bhukti that Harry is in when the book release happens. So let's go to the slide here. He's going to be in a Rahu moon period. Okay, and the moon period is September 10th, 2022 to March 11th, 2024. So he just entered this moon period. And remember, when he entered this moon period, it was right around the time the queen passed away, since the moon is the 8th lord. And then we also have Moon is in the eighth lord, is the eighth lord in the fifth house. Interestingly enough, fifth house represents books and book releases. So let's take a look at what this moon period represents. And also Rahu, we have to take a look at that as well, because he's in Rahu Mahadasha. So regardless of if we look at the book release or the coronation, he's going to be in this Rahu moon period, which is important to take a look at. Let's go to the chart here. So first off, Rahu, it's interesting that Rahu's in the sixth house, and sixth house can represent broken relationships, divorce, disagreement, and we see plenty of that, especially since Megxit happened. And a lot of times, someone that has Rahu in the sixth house, oftentimes they will have a divorce within their lifetime, just because it's so karmically in their life script. The other thing we want to take a look at, so that's the Mars, sorry, that's the Rahu aspect of all of this, okay? Now we're going to look at Moon, and look at where Moon is. Moon is in the fifth house. Let me clean that up. Moon is in the fifth house, and it rules the eighth house. And remember, eighth house is considered a malefic house in Vedic astrology. So the houses 6, 8, and 12 are considered malefic houses. Well, eighth house is associated with things like shocking revelations, shocking events, sudden things, death and rebirth, all types of those types of situations. And so eighth house is also associated with secrets or things that should be kept secret. And interestingly enough, the solar eclipse that happened October 25th happened in the 11th house of Libra in Prince Harry's chart. And then the lunar eclipse, which is happening November 8th, is happening in the 5th house of Aries. Well, isn't that interesting? Because by January, there's going to be a book release, and 5th house represents books. 5th house and 9th house is what you're going to look at it for, like books or novels or memoirs. So I do feel like there's going to be a lot of shocking information coming out of this book. And there may even be some sort of information. I'm thinking there's going to be some information saying that he was traumatized in some sort of way by the royal family because of this eighth lord type of situation that's happening and how it's being highlighted. So there's going to be this idea of, I've been traumatized. There's been these negative events that happened to me. And a lot of people have been asking, a lot of people have been thinking about the book, and they're wondering how much of it is really Harry and how much of it is Meghan's influence on the writing of the book, since likely there were probably ghostwriters involved in this book. So how much input did Harry or Meghan have on this book? That's yet to see. But I feel like there's going to be some taboo subjects brought up in the book, and it's going to be quite unsettling. And I do feel like this is going to cause some unsettling things within the marriage as well. And we're going to take a look at that. I feel that because of the amount of trauma indicated by the eighth house and the eighth lord, I do feel like this is going to cause some serious issues with the royal family. And one of the reasons I have for that is if we take a look at transiting Saturn, it's in the sign of Capricorn till January 17th, but the book release is going to be on January 10th. And the second house traditionally represents your family of origin. So right before Saturn's about to change signs on January 17th, there's going to be this book drop. And this is like the mark that Prince Harry's going to be leaving on the royal family. And I feel like there is going to be a lot of criticism about this book. Not only from the royal family, though, I actually feel that the public, especially those of you that are in the United Kingdom, I feel like there's going to be a lot of sentiment against this book. And let me show you in the chart why I feel that as well. If we take a look at Saturn in the natal chart, remember Saturn represents social judgment, represents society at large. Okay? And when we're looking at aspects, Saturn aspects 3 houses from itself, 7 houses from itself, and 10 houses from itself. Well, we got the 7th aspect on the 5th house there. I feel like there's going to be a negative public reaction to whatever's exposed in this book, especially from the royal family, since Saturn does represent things like the crown, institutions, establishments. So there's definitely going to be not a good reaction to this. And I even think the public's not going to be happy about this at all. So there's going to be a negative fallout. This could get to the point, I feel that by the time there's a coronation, first of all, we do know that in Meghan's chart, Meghan's in a K2 Bhukti right now. So I'm even wondering if either Meghan's not going to be invited to the coronation or Meghan might not show up to the coronation. I do feel like there's something around that coronation where either Meghan's going to be somewhat dejected in some sort of way, or Meghan's not going to go or attend at all because of this K2 situation that Meghan is in. If Harry goes, I feel like Harry's going to be even more than just what happened at the Queen's funeral. I feel like there's just going to be so much judgment. I feel like he's going to be very isolated at this coronation, and he's going to feel really out of sorts. And this is where I think that it's going to start causing issues, and it's going to start causing some friction within the relationship between Harry and Meghan. So I feel like all of this humiliation, all of these things that are happening with the Queen's funeral, then top it off with the coronation, there's going to be this idea of it's really going to start affecting Prince Harry. And we're going to see that when Prince Harry enters the Mars Bhukti, when I do think there's going to be, I feel that there is going to be a separation in the Mars Bhukti. So let's talk about that, at least from what the chart's indicating. Of course, my interpretation, entertainment purposes only. But let's take a look. Oops, I went to the wrong slide. Let's go to this slideshow. I wanted to show you guys the Mars Bhukti. So let's talk about the Mars Bhukti. The Rahu Mars period is going to be March 11th, 2024 to March 30th, 2025. And I feel like there's a strong possibility of Meghan leaving Harry because he's going to be in a Mars period, but Mars is with K2. So let's go explore that for a moment, because I know a lot of you are probably very curious about that. So this is going to be mostly, why did I already forget? This is going to be, let's see, from 2024 to 2025, the Mars period. Oops, let's go ahead and fix this. Okay, let's fix this. This is going to be during the Mars period, which I feel like is going to be quite difficult. So let's go back to the paint. And the Mars period, if we take a look at it, it's in the 12th house, which represents by itself, the 12th house usually represents endings and losses. Okay, so already there's that negative idea about the 12th house. And then we have Mars, and remember there's the Kuja dosha that's happening with Mars. Okay, so that's also going to show there's a lot of marriage karma during the Mars period. And then we have K2 there. And K2 is a lot of times people that are in a K2 period, there's either a separation, a divorce, there's some sort of losses. So you see it's like this double whammy. We got the K2 losses, we got the 12th house losses. All this is influencing the outcome of what's happening with Meghan and Harry. That's why I do feel like there's going to be, I do feel like if there's going to be a split, it's going to be during that period. And in fact, I feel like it's very likely there's going to be a split in that time period. And I feel like it's going to be Meghan leaving Prince Harry. And Meghan is going to be married more than, I think Meghan's been married twice now. I think Meghan's going to be married a third time. So let's go back to the slide here. And Mars with K2 in the 12th house indicates circumstances beyond one's control. It's a I surrender, I give up. And also the 12th house with Mars in it, K2 being there, leaving a foreign residence is indicated by this whole thing. So it's likely, and I'm making my prediction, I feel by 2025 or 2026 that Prince Harry is going to be moving back to the United Kingdom. And I do feel once this happens, if there's a separation and Prince Harry moves back, I feel like he's going to be welcomed back with open arms. There might be a little bit of a grudge with Prince William, but I feel like the family is going to be welcoming him back. And I feel like the family doesn't look too kindly on Meghan, obviously, because of how they stepped away from the royal family and the royal duties. So that's what I have for you. I feel like this is going to be very shocking, and we're going to see a chain reaction over the next year because of this book release. It's going to be a very negative influence on this whole situation. It's not going to help Meghan and Harry. The money, it doesn't matter. The money is not going to be enough for how much fallout this book is going to cause. So let me know what you guys think down below, and whether you agree or whether you disagree. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.